Hello everybody, Raven Knight here. Today we're continuing our dive into the heroes of For Honor, analyzing them for their lore, historical inspirations, playstyle, design, and overall feel. Today we're talking about the second Outlander to hit the stage, all the way from the dry sands of Egypt, coming with an unorthodox weapon, some animal cosplay, and a moveset that needs a bit more attention in my opinion. That's right guys, we are talking about the Medjay.
In the vestiges of my homeland, legends speak of the scarab bracelet. Fated to curse any other who would sully it. What is mine by right was stolen. Heathmore suffers, and I am the only one who can stop it. By whatever means necessary.
When the cataclysm struck Egypt, the once prosperous and mighty kingdom was laid bare. The land now is little more than a necropolis, a city of ruins and sand. And yet, the warriors who call it home, the Medjay, still defend its secrets and its treasures from bandits and outsiders. Led by their pharaoh Neferka, the Medjay have sworn to maintain the order and integrity of Egypt, even in its lowly state. One day, a raider from Heathmore arrived in Egypt seeking a solution to the struggles faced by his Viking kin. He wandered into an ancient tomb where he met Neferka, who was there to ensure he did not get hurt. The two became friends and bonded through their traversal of the crypts. At the end of their journey, the raider Bolthorn discovered a sacred treasure, the scarab bracelet. Neferka told him it was a treasure that belonged only to the line of the pharaohs and was a gift from the gods. In the hands of the rightful king of Egypt, the bracelet had the power to restore life to body, spirit, and land itself. However, Neferka asked Bolthorn to leave it alone and not take it. Bolthorn, who owed his life to Neferka, agreed, until on his way back to Heathmore he was attacked and injured by bandits. He made his way back to find the bracelet so it could heal him, and it did. Filled with excitement, he betrayed Neferka's trust and stole the bracelet, taking it home to Heathmore to heal his people and land. Learning of Bolthorn's betrayal, Neferka knew what fate awaited both him and Heathmore as a result of the bracelet. Only in the hands of the pharaoh would its power heal, but in the hands of the unworthy it would bring terrible curses and plagues. Neferka rallied his Medjay and set out for Heathmore to not only take back what was his, but save Heathmore from itself. Upon reaching the shores of Valkenheim, he beheld seas of blood, frogs raining from the skies, corpses littering the fields and roads, and some men and women walking about as though they were nothing but corpses waiting to die. In the midst of it all was Bolthorn. His body twisted and blackened by the bracelet, which had cursed him for his transgressions, and the two dueled, with Neferka proving to be the greater warrior. Taking back the bracelet, he used its power to heal Heathmore and to restore her to her former glory. But now, the Medjay see a land in need of order and direction, a land that they can mend and support to make better. So many have elected to stay and perhaps bring back order to the war-torn lands. Now that is all the lore that we got on the Medjay. I actually plan to do a different video sometime in the future talking about the stupidity of Neferka's lore and why I wrote Timwa's lore the way I did. But for now, that is the Medjay lore. But now that we've talked about their lore within the world, let's talk about their history. Who are the Medjay based on? Let's get into it. Now, if you want a full breakdown on Medjay's historical roots, I advise you watch my Heroes in History video on the topic, but briefly, I will say that the Medjay are based on the real-world Medjay of ancient Egypt. The Medjay were essentially the Egyptian police force and peacekeeping force during the 18th dynasty, which is about 1550 to 1292 BC. The term Medjay actually referred to not only the police force, but the act of policing itself. Now, as the Egyptian territories grew and expanded, the necessity of defenders grew as well, and thus the need for Medjay to defend tombs, crypts, treasures, and palaces grew with it. The Medjay in turn took on roles necessary to protect and guard these important areas, as well as maintain order and discipline. In the lore of For Honor, the Medjay embody this as they act as the guardians and stewards of the Egyptian relics and tombs. Again, if you want more information on their historical influences, I point you to the full video where I go into excruciating detail on their origins. But now, let's talk about their design, because boy, there is a lot to talk about. Medjay is a very unique hero overall, bringing a lot of changes and some of them a bit controversial, I'll admit. And let's go ahead and address the elephant in the room. Unlike all the other heroes whose skin color can be altered from pale white to pitch black, Medjay is black by default and can only be made different shades of black skinned. Now, I'm not going to get on some illusionary soapbox and preach about the evils of this decision, though I will point out that if the reason for this was based on some historical accuracy, it's not. The Egyptian people were a hodgepodge and melting pot of various races and skin colors, and although the original Medjay likely hailed from Nubia, which was very dark-skinned, by the end of their era, though, the Medjay would have had other ethnicities intermingled into their number. Furthermore, the Medjay have three different styles to look through when it comes to their armor sets. You have your Egyptian prince, you have your mummy, and you have the Egyptian furry cosplay. Now, your princes, this is the one where you see Medjay's face and show it off to the world. Meanwhile, the mummy one looks like he has a face hidden by a full helmet, while his body is wrapped in mummy tape. And the furry cosplay has the Medjay wearing the helm reflective of an ancient Egyptian god, be it the crocodile head of Sobek, the jackal head of Anubis, or the falcon head of Ra, or possibly Horus. The nice thing is, though, that there's nothing preventing you from mixing and matching these looks for yourself, so you can come up with some pretty creative ideas. As for the weapon, the weapon is highly impractical. A fan-bladed staff that can be broken in half to make twin axes and then reattached? That's a little suspect to me. There's no historical evidence of such weapons, and while I do think it's kind of a cool idea, it might have been cooler to go with a Khopesh and shield, or maybe even dual Khopeshes if you want, or maybe you could combine the two Khopeshes into one long staff, kind of like, I don't know, kind of like what maybe Death did in the Puss in Boots movie, where he took his two sides and put them together. Maybe you could do something like that.
Bien. Muy bien.
I don't know. The issue with this weapon is, while I think it's a neat idea, it's clear where they got it from, the art of Egyptians carrying these fan staffs, but these are likely just fans, not actually weapons, so I think that this is a little bit odd. Now, as for my personal builds, when I built the Medjay, I have 4 Medjay builds. I have Timwa, which all of you should know now is the true king of Egypt, and if you haven't heard his legend, go listen to it. It is one of my favorites. Ibrahim the Jackal. My Zechian warrior, which I added for my Warhammer builds.
You're going to tell me everything you know about Khan?
And Nasir the Undying.
I'll add a new word to your vocabulary. Conspiracy. To commit murder.
That's
You can
3
serve as
words.
many years in prison as you have candles on.
As you can see, I had a lot of fun putting these builds together. Let me know which ones you like the most in the comments. And now let's talk about the executions. If you want to hear my full thoughts on executions and how they come out, go ahead and check out my For Honor Executions Graded series, where I go through all of the heroes' executions and give them a grade. But for this video, I will tell you my favorite and least favorite of the executions. My favorite for Medjay is Dunes of Retribution. This execution is just solid. And what I like about it is that it uses the axe and staff variation. You have the staff portion where you thrust into the throat, then yank out the bottom half so he falls forward and lands with the blade buried in his throat about halfway. Then you bring the other side down. Now, when I first saw it, I thought that what was happening was the blade was hitting the head and cutting it, but that's not what's happening. He's using the shaft of the axe to strike the head and push down. He's essentially hammering the head through the blade that's pointed up. So that way he's not just cutting, he's hammering down and then turning the blade, lifting it underneath the one on the bottom and yanking it into the air before catching it with a very cocky laugh. It's really cool, very solid, and a great way to use that weapon. Is it practical? No, but the weapon itself is impractical, so we can give some leeway on that. But overall, that is probably my favorite. It just screams awesomeness to me. For my least favorite, this isn't even a contest. I knew which one was my least favorite from the beginning. It is Guardian of Ruins. This execution is bizarre. First of all, he breaks the staff in half and brings the two axe heads around and strikes into the neck, and then just yanks them out and somehow the head comes off. That's not how that works, first of all. And second, you're doing it reverse grip. Notice how his fists are reverse gripped right now. Even if I did want to buy, oh yeah, you could totally take the head off that way. Maybe you should turn the grip around the right way so that you get more control of the axe head. Nah, for me, this is a weak one. It looks really weird, and honestly, it's one of the lazier Medjay executions. Go for a different one. Any of the others are probably going to be better than this one. I'm not a fan of Guardian Ruins. It is just a weak execution overall. But that does it for all of the design aspects of Medjay. Now I know what y'all really want to talk about. You want to talk about how to play him. So let's get into the playstyle. Alright, so when it comes to Medjay's abilities and his moveset, Medjay is one of those characters who I do like, don't get me wrong, but it's not a lot to write home about. It's just not all that impressive if you ask me. And if you think it's bad now, man, Medjay came out really rough. A lot of people were not a fan of his moveset. He did get it fixed a little bit, but I still think it needs some work. And I blame this a lot on the weapon he has. Like I said earlier, I think he would have done better with like dual kopeshes or something like that. Not that this weapon isn't creative, but I feel like it limits his abilities. So let's get into it. So, as all characters do, he has lights and heavies, and like some characters, he has an infinite light-heavy chain, as long as he throws a second attack that does not match the first. So he can go light, light, but that ends the combo. He can go light, heavy, light, heavy, light, heavy, light, heavy, light, and he can keep that going as long as he has stamina to throw it. He can also go zone, light, heavy, light. But if you throw a zone mid-chain, well, you know what, I may be getting a little bit ahead of myself. Now, there are a few things to keep in mind when you complete a move. While the stance I'm in right now is known as staff stance. While in staff stance, when I throw a light followed by another light, it's pretty simple and basic. When I throw a heavy, sorry, wrong button. When I throw a heavy followed by another heavy, I gain some hyper armor, which means that I can trade, but it also means that the second heavy comes out a little slower than the last. So you need to be aware of that. Now, let's talk about his other stance. You can switch into what's called axe stance, and in this stance you are essentially a berserker. In this stance you have access to the same things: lights, heavy, light, heavy, light, heavy. But there are a few added benefits to being an axe stance. For one thing, in axe stance, your second light, if you throw it after a previous light, is undodgeable. And if you throw a second heavy, it is unblockable. So axe stance gives you a few options to make sure that your opponent can't get away from you if you throw that second light, and can also add some pressure with the unblockable. Now, that is the basics of the two stances. Now you might be thinking, okay, those stances seem kind of cool, what else can they do for you? Well, you also have access to a bash, but the bashes are different depending on the stance. In staff stance, you do a grabbing bash. This move does some damage, pins them for a brief period, while kneeing them in the face, but it also exposes you. Another thing to keep in mind about it is ungodly slow. This is not a move you want to do in the middle of a one-on-one fight unless you're very confident in being able to outplay your opponent. This is a lot better in ganking scenarios. While in your axe stance, it is a shoulder bash, like Warden's. and it guarantees a light. So keep that in mind when you're in those stances. Now, since we've talked about that, it's time to talk about the one thing that Medjay has that makes him somewhat viable. His ability to alternate his stances mid-combo. If I throw a light, heavy, zone, I go into my other stance. And the same is true in axe stance. Throwing a zone mid-combo allows me to go into my other stance. Further, this is another little tidbit that you may want to be aware of. If you throw an attack, like let's say that you throw a heavy attack, and pull back on your analog and go into the axe stance, you will do it almost immediately as your dodge recovery. So you want to make sure that you keep that in mind. If you want to switch between stances as quickly as possible, that is a good way to do it. And you might be thinking, well, Raven, why would I want to do that if I can do it mid-stance? Because the direction that your zone will come from to switch stances is always the same. Because of this, smart opponents will figure that out and know to block that side. So it's a lot smarter to switch up mid combo by breaking the combo and getting ready after throwing an attack. That way you're not going to be baited. See what I mean? Now, there are a few other things to keep in mind. Get this. This is kind of cool. You may like this. I actually learned it not too long ago, and it has helped me out a lot with Medjay. If you throw a light attack from any stance and hit the guard break button, instead of doing a guard break, you will do your bash. So, light. Light. And you can keep going with your combination that way. So as you can see, Medjay's whole game plan is to basically throw a lot of pressure at the opponent in a very fast amount of time. And you want to make sure that you don't run out of stamina, as I did earlier. One of the problems with being a pressure player like Medjay is you want to make sure that you don't overrun your stamina, otherwise you're going to be in a world of hurt. Another thing to keep in mind is that while everyone likes the axe stance because of the unblockables, don't sleep on the staff stance either, because staff stance is a great way for crowd control. You can keep a lot of people at a distance that way. Plus, the hyper armor is very useful when trading blows, so don't sleep on that. But overall, I would say that even with all these factors thrown in, Medjay can be a little underwhelming. For example, in the guard break, I can only get a free heavy from the top, not from the side. If my brother wanted to block it from that side, he could. See what I mean? So you want to make sure that when you're in the guard break, you only throw your heavy from the top, not from any other side. Then there's his dodge attacks. Doesn't matter what stance you're in, they're all parryable, and they can all be caught off guard by a good parry. So if my brother would demonstrate. See what I mean? And if I do it with the staff stance, yeah, they're all pretty readable. So there's just not a lot left to him after that. He doesn't have a lot of stuff to really make him as viable as some other characters. Now, does that make him weak? No, I do not think it makes Medjay weak at all. But I do think it makes him a little underwhelming. He's a little bit like Warlord in the sense that he can work, but it's almost like you get tired of playing him after a while because you feel like he should be doing more than he is. So is he good? Yes, I would say he's pretty good. He's okay, but I think that his moveset leaves a lot to be desired. I think some people were looking for a bit more from him than what he has. Not to say that he's bad, but I think that he just wears people out a little bit. Just not someone that people want to play nonstop all the time. Now, you may disagree. You may say that you like Medjay and that you enjoy playing him, and that's fine. I enjoy playing Medjay too. I think that I just wanted to see a little bit more from his moveset, if that makes any sense. But that is pretty much how you play Medjay. I hope you guys enjoyed. Time to wrap up the video. And that covers everything Medjay that I can think of. So let me say this about Medjay. When Medjay first came out, I was totally on board, but skeptical. Not skeptical as in I wouldn't enjoy the hero. More skeptical of how are you connecting this to Egyptian warriors. Like I said, the staff is impractical. And while I don't necessarily have a problem with making Medjay all black, you know that's not historically what they were like, but that's whatever. The issue I took was I was expecting a Kopesh hero, and we got a staff axe hero, which is fine, but I always just kind of scratch my head at that. However, what is cool about it is it gave me the opportunity to create Timoir, which was a character that I absolutely loved inventing. Timoir is one of my favorite Legends characters I've made. If you have not heard that legend, I beg you, go check it out. I worked very hard on it. I think it is really, 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 really good. But I do enjoy playing Medjay. It's just I can't play them very long. They get kind of boring after a while because their moveset is just very basic. Can it be useful? Absolutely. But the moveset is very basic, so you just got to keep that in mind. So that is all I have to say about Medjay right now. Thank you guys so much, and I look forward to seeing you in my next video. Take care.